Welcome back, WNST, Towson, Baltimore, and WNST.net. You would say there's nothing good that comes from the Hatfields and the McCoys, but I tell you what, over a quarter of a century, even through this period of time where we're the lowly 1 o'clock Sunday game, it's always fun to get together with our yins and friends up in the Berg. Charlie Batch, despite kicking our butt one day, and we remembered around here, we got even with the Ryan Mallett thing. This week it'll be Lamar Jackson and Mason Rudolph to pick up the Steelers and the Ravens. We welcome him in. Here's Charlie Batch, 1-6 up in the Berg and doing all sorts of good things to help the world, make the world a better place. Speaking, radioing, charliebatch.coming, foundationing, and talking football with me. And boy, we're going to need a scorecard on this one, right? I mean, this is really the turnover. No Suggs, no Weddle, no Flacco, no Mosley, no Roethlisberger, no Le'Veon Bell, no AB. Just uniforms and new faces, Charlie Batch, right?
You are exactly right. I mean, that's probably the first time I heard that particular saying as far as the details of what's going on in this game. But, man, this is the changing of the guards. And, of course, it starts with the quarterbacks, and everybody fully expects Ben Roethlisberger back for next year. But, man, for years to come, this could be potential lineup that you're seeing with Mason Rudolph and Lamar Jackson.
Well, look, you've been a starter, you've been a backup, you carried clipboards, you had a coaching headset, you've done all that stuff. When you see someone forced into duty, right? I don't know that the Steelers realized this was a possibility when they made the trade, but is he ready? And has he looked ready? It feels like the offense was a little spoon-fed, and they did what they needed to do to beat the Cincinnati Bengals, which, they haven't taken the top off this offense from what I can see.
Yeah, they definitely haven't taken the top off, that's for sure. But last week was just a matter of trying to figure out whatever worked and by any means necessary. That truly was the definition last week of getting a win over the Bengals. And, whether or not that can continue, obviously that will remain to be seen on Sunday. But everybody fully expects Mason Rudolph to take that next step. It's just a matter of when that's going to happen. So I think when you look back to think and you ask that question, is Mason Rudolph ready? I think they thought he may be ready, but they weren't expecting Ben Roethlisberger to go out with the season-ending injury. And right now, everything that we're trying to figure out, we're all learning week to week, because what you're seeing from Mason Rudolph, of course, statistically, he played a great game last week, but everybody expects that they're looking to throw the football down the field, and they're asking that question in Pittsburgh here of when it's going to happen.
Yeah, maybe this is the wrong question to ask you in the wrong week, because last week if I would have asked you, you might have not said a whole lot. But what have you liked? I mean, I know they're 1-3. That's all obvious. I seen pieces of the earlier games. I saw all of the game on Monday night. I saw how bad the Bengals were. I think we all saw that. You may have seen how bad the Dolphins were in week one for us. Very hard to judge against that. But give me some things you like about where the Steelers are that would say that they can win this week and beat the Ravens.
Well, I think defensively, it starts with them. Of course, Minka from Fitzpatrick, this was a guy they traded for 2 weeks ago. He came in and made a statement, especially against San Francisco, and he's looking to continue to do great things there on the defensive side of the ball, and that helps the back end on coverage-wise. But I think now offensively, with the turnovers that the defense is creating, they have to now turn those into points. San Francisco, they had 5 turnovers, only 6 points. Last week, they were able to put it into the end zone, but they just need to now complement one another. Offensively, they're still trying to figure out what their identity is on this football team. So that question remains to be seen. But I think when you look back, of course, it starts with Mason Rudolph. I love what I saw coming from 1 week to another. Playing on the road is very tough to win, and as you know this, on the road in the National Football League. But coming into Heinz Field, Mason looked a lot more poised, and it just felt like he had a little bit more command of the offense and took his shot when needed. The excitement around here is the fact that it's a division game. So they feel like if they can win this particular game, they're right back into the thick of things in this division. If they lose, man, it's going to be chaos around here.
We really struggled against Cleveland last week. A slobber knocker in a way that the final score didn't do it justice. And I know you probably got a chance to look at parts of it and what happened here. But stopping the run at this point, until the Ravens do it, I'm assuming people are going to come after it. I look at that offensive line in Pittsburgh, and I recognize the names. I'm not sure we're recognizing the output, and certainly the skill position has taken such a turn there. Not just with Ben, but obviously with Bell and with Brown and matchups that we're used to here looking over the last 5 years and saying, oh, my God, they're coming to town. How are we going to cover all these guys? That's different. But if they could run the ball, and it looks to be like that would be the best solution, and that's been very difficult to do, that would change things if the running game could turn around for the Steelers.
Yeah, and that's something that we've been trying to figure out around here. Why isn't the running game going? Had a tough few weeks there last week. Yeah, they were able to get some things going, but it hasn't been consistent. And when you have a Pro Bowl runner like James Conner, he made the Pro Bowl last year and over 900 yards halfway through the season, and wasn't able to get that 1,000-yard, but yet you have the returning offensive line coming back. That's something to say, okay, why isn't this thing working? So offensive line is taking this on. They're looking at it and they're taking it personal just because they feel like, man, what is going on? So they want to try to get these running backs going. And, of course, looking at the game that Cleveland had against this Baltimore defense, man, they're looking and sitting back saying, okay, maybe this is the breakout week if they can turn around and make it happen.
Charlie Batch is our guest. She is Charlie Batch 1-6. He's up in Pittsburgh doing post-game, pre-game, any game, giving speeches, doing foundation stuff, talking football, all that good stuff. And you can find everything he does up on Twitter at Charlie Batch 1-6. You played in the league a long time. You had a lot of teammates. I'm sure at various points you thought some of them were a little crazy or maybe a little greedy or maybe a little narcissistic or, whatever. You played with hundreds of guys in the course of your time. Watching what's happened up there, not just the tragedy with Shazier, I mean, just sort of the pendulum swing of emotions and then the Antonio Brown saga and how it played out in Oakland, how it played out in New England, how it's probably going to play out in the courts before it's all over with. I mean, it's exasperating, and I would think that there's probably a whole lot more oxygen left in the room up there, and it's probably been, despite the 1-3 start, somewhat more peaceful to be a member going to work every day, right?
Yeah, it's been a lot calmer, especially in the off-season, training camp, and people fully expected this team to get off to a fast start and succeed that way, and it just hasn't happened. So now, you're turning around trying to figure out what is really going on. Juju has not put up the numbers in the first 4 games like he typically has, and of course that's because Antonio Brown is not on the other side that he's able to reap the rewards of being one-on-one coverage. So now he's commanding those double teams, but who is the other guy opposite Juju? And they've fully expected Dante Moncrief to be a guy. He really has not lived up to expectations, benched. And, of course, now we're seeing Deontay Johnson as the rookie actually starting. So to see him overleap James Washington, and I think this is something that, he's a young guy. That you see flashes of what's happening, but they need a consistent number 2 that's going to take the pressure off of Juju Smith-Schuster. And if they don't get that, and it doesn't happen here soon, man, it's going to be a frustrating year for these receivers.
Well, you know what it's like when you go into battle and you've got the best guy on the field, right? And Antonio Brown, for better or worse, was that guy. There was something about that, preparing for him, and the Steelers have got to prepare for Lamar Jackson this week. And when you have those kind of mismatches, from a quarterback's perspective, to have that kind of a weapon, it's game changer, right?
It really is, and this is something that Mason Rudolph is going to have to go through these growing pains. I mean, Ben Roethlisberger, when he was in the lineup for 2 games, he was frustrated because these guys, I can't speak for him. I can't say he was frustrated, but the numbers weren't there. And that was a direct correlation of not having that number 2 receiver step up. Dante Moncrief dropped 7 passes in 2 games. That's why he was benched. So these are things that we're trying to, figure out on that end. But as Mason Rudolph goes on, you would naturally think that rapport that he has with James Washington from a relationship as college teammates at Oklahoma State would carry on. That hasn't happened. So it's just, it gets to that point where, obviously the defense can only do but so much before they start tiring out. The offense has to complement them. So I think when you look back on that other side, defensively, they're creating turnovers. They had a really good game against the Bengals team. And like you mentioned, that's a bad football team. But now as you turn around, as hot as Lamar Jackson started off, of course he has 10 touchdowns this season, how will this Steelers team match up? What is that big question going to be? So it's going to be, there's going to be interesting to see if he can bounce back, because you typically haven't seen a game where he, had a bad game, bounce back. So I think that question is going to be answered and revealed on that side as well. So I think that's the intriguing things to watch during the course of this game.
Charlie, for you with this offense and when they drafted Lamar, I'm sure you wish you had 4.2 speed, and you'd use it, and what kind of a weapon that would be if you had it. And designing an offense for him last year, it felt like bumper cars, and it felt like he really was seeking contact. Like it didn't bother him. I think it bothered everybody else in the organization. We've seen just in the last couple weeks, not just that they're throwing the ball more, that the routes are more sophisticated, the things they're trying to do are more sophisticated, that he's had some success in various ways in doing this, and also the success is in all week you have to figure out how to stop him when he gets the Jets going. But there is something about this that a year and a half ago when he was drafted, it was very hard for me to find people that really believe that this can work, that having a quarterback that can run, that it's just not a good idea, and that's why nobody else wanted to do it. But, boy, when it's working, when you're in 2nd and 2 all day and converting and holding the ball and your defense is getting 3 and outs, it's a beautiful thing. Now, we'll get to our defense in a minute, but just offensively for you, is it a hard buy-in or was it a hard buy-in for you to change the entire operation to run this way?
Yeah, and I think that's the part where, obviously you have to start crediting your coaches or a lot more pressure on them to figure out what the game plan looks like. Everybody knows the talent is there. We all watched him in college. We all understand, him winning the Heisman, but can that now, transition into the pro ranks? And so far, when you look at what he's done, yeah, you could say, the question is there, still kind of up in the air, but man, this guy has talent. And if you're a defensive coordinator watching him all off season, what he did last year, of course you're going to come in and say, I'm taking away the running game. You prove that you can pass in the pocket. Dolphins did that. He torched them. So now you sit back and say, as defensive coordinator catch up, and this time of year, you're 4 games in, now defensive coordinator starts to know your tendencies. Now it's going to be up to Lamar to continue to prove that he can throw in the pocket. And if he can make those throws, man, it's going to be dangerous, and that's going to propel him to continue to lead the Baltimore team if he wants to take them where he thinks he can take them.
Man, it sucks when you can't stop the run, right? I mean, as the quarterback, you're over on the sideline, just please get me the ball back, please. We've had a little bit of that around here, and no Suggs, no Mosley, no Weddle, no Flacco. I mean, different people. They imported Earl Thomas. It's difficult to import and bring a heart transplant, into an organization. They've had some issues after the game that were reported on Sunday. Brandon Williams didn't play. They got run on. This is going to be an interesting matchup because it feels to me like the Steelers are going to try to bring the running game all day long, and the Ravens have really, really struggled.
Yeah, I feel that way too. I mean, they really show flashes. Of course, Jalen Samuels up here. He's a jack of all trades. They did a little bit of Wildcat last week. They're trying to get Connor going. Of course, Bay Snell is a third-team running back who actually got a couple snaps in the game. So I think this is something to where you look back and you're like, man, this is kind of crazy on how when you look at these football teams, they're running the football, but of course you want to figure out what that identity is there. It's a pivotal game for both. And I say that because the Steelers are looking to get it back into the division, hopefully be 2-3 if they can pull off this victory. And if you're on the other side and you're the Ravens, you're like, we can turn around and get to 3-2 and then have another now half a game up on the Steelers by beating them head-to-head. This is crucial this time of year because now it takes some of that pressure off when you start to head to the second half of the year.
How about those Cleveland Browns, huh? I sat around here last week feeling good and watched what Tennessee had done and thought it was going to be okay. And in comes Baker Mayfield. Charlie, I mean, no disrespect to you. I've seen you celebrate beating us. It was hard for me to stomach that. But watching Baker Mayfield and a Cleveland Brown, I've never seen a happy Cleveland Brown quarterback in my stadium in 20 years. And here's the worst part. It didn't feel like an accident or lucky. It starts to feel like, oh, he's coming back next year and the next year. That's the one thing the Browns quarterbacks never did is come back next year and next year. Ben's been coming back for 2 decades now, right? And Brady's been coming back to Buffalo and New York and Miami, And I feel like this is a trend and this is something you're going to have to talk about twice a year too.
Yeah, I fully agree. And this is something I know in Cleveland they're excited about because they feel like they have their quarterback and they don't have to keep rotating with that long list of quarterbacks that you see, that's always plastered all over the place. So if they can get that, of course, Baltimore with Jackson and, if Cincinnati continues to go down this downward spiral, of course, they'll be looking for a quarterback next year. So I like the young trend that's going on in this division. It just gets to the point of hopefully they don't have a lot of success against the Steelers. But I think this is something to where, as you kind of we'll see how this schedule is kind of unfolding. You have your division games, and of course now all eyes will be on the Steelers season, especially in November whenever they play Cleveland 2 times in 3 weeks. So schedule makers knew what they were doing from that perspective, but nobody anticipated the Steelers getting off to a 1-3 start and, ultimately thinking that, with the loss of Ben Roethlisberger, that this season is pretty much over. But if you talk to the players on this team, they really feel like they have the pieces in place that they turn around and hopefully continue to crawl and continue on to be in this division race.
All right, let's get off the sports part of this and let's get on to the community and politics and places and improvement and all that stuff, because I'm doing Baltimore positive around here. Since last time you and I got together, every week I get together with congressmen and senators. This week I had John Sarbanes, Ben Cardin. We have local leaders. We've had the mayor, the city councilman. Baltimore's on the struggle, right? We're trying to make it better, and I know you've put so much effort throughout your career and especially in your post-career with Pittsburgh and tragedies close to you. And how's Pittsburgh doing? How are you doing? How's the founding? When I come to Pittsburgh and I give you a hard time, and I think I've said this to you at Super Bowls when you and the bus, and I think I had a long chat with the bus about how Detroit, his hometown, is coming back and doing better. Pittsburgh feels like it's doing better. When I go to Pittsburgh now, it feels like a different, more cosmopolitan, lots of money, lots of things, and STEM, and Carnegie Mellon, and Pitt, and Duquesne, colleges, young people, smart people, industry. Pittsburgh's changed a lot, and I think you've seen that, and we're trying to get up here in Baltimore as a community and get better too.
Yeah, and I think when you look back, and of course Detroit were going through their transitions, Pittsburgh did that over the last 10 years and try to fully equip themselves as a better technology city. You start to see Facebook, Google, Uber, a lot of these tech companies that are coming into Pittsburgh because of the universities like Carnegie Mellon and University of Pittsburgh, Robert Morris. It's just exciting to see, and it's not uncommon when you're sitting here at a stoplight, you see a driverless car. Look back, you're like, wow.
What?
Satellite over top of it. Yeah.
That happens there?
Yeah, that happens in Pittsburgh.
I ain't coming to Pittsburgh. Come on now.
So, it's just something, you get excited to see, but, you're like, wow, they're collecting all of this data and these things are starting to happen. And that's kind of one of the things with our foundation, which is the Best of the Batch Foundation. We now are celebrating our 20th year. We're an educational foundation, and we focus on STEAM, and we add the arts element into that as well.
I like
and
that.
We get kids excited. This is what they want to do. And currently, we serve 3,800 kids annually throughout southwestern Pennsylvania. So we're excited about that. And as we now move into the next 20 years, we're excited because we just are breaking ground on a 26,000 square foot expansion project with our foundation. So we're getting ready to add a lot more STEAM programs into our computer labs. And it's just exciting time of year, and that will help increase our numbers to over 4,000. So we're just excited with all of the help, all the volunteers that believe in what we're doing at the Best of the Batch Foundation, and we couldn't be any more excited than what we currently are now. And if anybody wants to follow kind of what we do, they can just go to charliebatch.com. And you'll be able to see all of everything that we're doing.
Yeah, I go deep thoughts on you, but what was the first inspiration in all of this and getting involved? Because I know you're, we have Torrey Smith here, really he's going to roll his sleeves up. I've seen him 3 times in the last 2 weeks banging around Baltimore and doing stuff now. And and he had set his whole life up to be involved, and I think you had too, right? I mean, this is something that began very, very early, and we always hear about athletes wanting to give back, and it's nice and autographs and stuff when you're a player. But man, when you're not a player anymore and you have maybe a little bit more money than you need and a little bit of abundance and some time and some celebrity, you can do a hell of a lot of damage in a good way, can't you?
Absolutely. And I think this is something for me that I knew this is what I wanted to do after football. And, for me, this journey started 21 years ago, and sitting back and had the loss of my sister at the age of 17, and she had never had an opportunity to live life. She was caught in crossfire between rival gangs. And I said at that point, if I was ever in position to give back, I would. And having the opportunity to get drafted by the Detroit Lions in 1998 and then take that and transition our foundation goals to Pittsburgh, I knew this is what I wanted to do. This is home for me. I'm literally 10 minutes from the practice facility of the Steelers. So this was everything that I wanted to do, and for people to believe in the vision and what we were trying to do. One thing I always said, I never want a child or a family to feel the way that we did. And we needed to create programming to get these kids excited and getting them to think outside of the box. And for me, it was education. Of course, everybody talks about sports, and of course, that number, kind of dwindles just to be a professional. And we wanted to make sure that we had created a base for these kids to be able to fall back on and to go out there and continue to live their dreams. And we're able to do that. And they come to our building, and it's just excitement when we sit back and see all of these kids that are living their dreams. And hopefully one day, as they go out there and continue to make it, that they return it to their communities. That's one of the things that we always strive to be able to do. And it's just exciting to start to see now these young students who graduating college and looking to, create their own mold, but wanting to give back in the same light is truly remarkable to see. And we're just truly blessed to be a part of it.
CharlieBatch.com. You can find him there, as well as CharlieBatch16 out on Twitter. And I will see you. I always say Mr. Rooney makes nice cookies up there. I'm sure he's going to make me a roast on Sunday at 1 o'clock. So we'll look forward to get up there. And this is a new era for the Hatfields and McCoys. I hope it extends another 20 years and doesn't go away. It's a lot of fun getting together a couple times a year and talking with you. So appreciate you, Charlie.
Not a problem. Look forward to seeing you this weekend.
You got it. CharlieBatch16. More than football out there on the Twitter thing. And really, we need more dudes like that, man. All around the country. We got a lot of them. We need more of them. So great having Charlie on. All the Pittsburgh folks have been on this week. You can learn more about the game at 1 o'clock on Sunday out in the buyatoyota.com audio vault 24 hours a day from anywhere in the world on your mobile device by downloading the TuneIn Radio app. We do come in crystal clear from anywhere in the world. Facebook, Twitter, LinkedIn, Snapchat. I'm international on the Twitter thing. Come find us. We are WNST.net, AM 1570 and WNST Towson, Baltimore, and we never stop talking Baltimore sports.